You ever notice how some people get applause just for showing up? That was my brother, Jake. From the moment he could string together a sentence, my parents acted like he was some kind of golden prophet sent to bless our household. I was just the other one. The spare. The backup plan. The kid who was told to understand, to be mature, to not ruin the mood. It is funny, the things you remember. I was 7 when I brought home a blue ribbon from the science fair. I had stayed up for nights building this janky volcano that spewed colored foam all over the cafeteria. My teacher called it the most creative project in the class. I ran home with that ribbon in my hand, hoping maybe, just maybe, it would be enough. My mom glanced at it while making dinner, muttered, "That is nice," and went right back to bragging about how Jake got chosen to lead the pledge that morning. At school, you would have thought he cured a disease. That was my life. He was the sun. I was the long shadow behind him. And no matter what I did, honor roll, soccer captain, scholarships, I stayed in that shadow. They never hit me. They never screamed. But emotional neglect? That cuts deeper. They praised Jake for existing. I had to bleed for half a smile. They trusted him with the car at 15. I had to ask for permission to borrow it at 18 and got grilled like I was planning a heist. When he wrecked it, it was just an accident. When I came home 10 minutes late. Irresponsible. So I left. Quietly. I packed my bags the night after graduation, told them I was moving to the city for college. What they did not know was I had already enrolled in a trade school on the other side of the state. Welding. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills. And it was mine. No more living in Jake's shadow. For 10 years, I built my life from scratch. No handouts. No calls home. Just early mornings, double shifts, busted knuckles, and the kind of pride that does not show up on a family fridge, but sure as hell shows up in your bones. I bought my own house by 28. Ran my own crew by 30. Nothing flashy, just real. Solid. Earned. I had not heard from them in almost 5 years. Until yesterday. My phone lit up around noon. Unknown number. I almost let it ring out. But something made me answer. The voice on the other end? My mother. Shaky. Quiet. Asking how I had been. No mention of the years gone by. No apologies. Then came the real reason for the call. Jake was in trouble. Big trouble. And they needed me. I said nothing. Just listened as she told me the details. And in that moment, I realized something I never thought I would feel. I had the power now. But what would I do with it? I did not answer her right away. I told her I was busy and hung up. Then I sat on the edge of my truck bed behind the shop, just staring out at the dirt lot behind my building, listening to the quiet hum of the afternoon. Jake. Trouble. Those words swirled around like smoke in my head. It had been a long time since I had heard anything about him. Last I knew, he had some cushy corporate job downtown, one of those clean-shaven types with tailored suits and a fake laugh. He used to post pictures on social media, vacations in the Keys, wine tastings, group shots where he was always dead center, surrounded by people who looked like they all went to the same gym and bragged about the same internships. Me? I never had time for that nonsense. I was the guy fixing their HVAC when the AC failed. The guy wiring the lights in their overpriced condos. Jake always made sure to keep me out of the camera frame whenever I showed up at family things. Said I looked too rugged. That was his word. Rugged. Like I was some old leather couch they kept in the garage. Turns out, Jake's perfect life had cracked wide open. Legal stuff. Financial. Bad enough that my parents were desperate enough to dial the number they had probably deleted years ago. I tried not to feel anything about it. I really did. But you cannot unfeel old wounds. Later that night, I pulled a box out of my closet. It was buried under an old tarp and some boots I had not worn in years. Inside were pieces of a life I used to fight for, honor roll certificates, a Little League trophy, a faded letter from my welding instructor calling me one of the most dedicated students he had ever seen. None of it mattered to my parents back then. That box. It had not seen daylight in over a decade. I sat with it on my lap for a while, just turning those pieces over like they might offer some sort of answer. Then I heard a knock at the door. Hard. Not the kind you expect from strangers. I opened it slowly, and there he was. Jake. He looked rough. Not just tired, shaken. Like a man who had been free-falling for weeks and only just realized he had no parachute. He tried to smile. Said he had been driving for hours. Said Mom and Dad had not told him I had moved so far out. Said he needed a place to stay. I did not step aside. Not yet. Because the truth was, I had no idea what would happen next. But I knew one thing for sure. This was not going to be a simple visit. Jake stood there like he expected the door to swing open by magic. Like all was forgiven the moment he showed up looking humbled and tired. But I just leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching him shuffle his weight from one foot to the other. He glanced past me, like maybe the inside of my house held something familiar. It didn't. This place was mine. Every wall, every pipe, every inch of insulation, I either paid for it or built it myself. No help. No cosigners. Just sweat, calluses, and long nights. I knew exactly where the hot water kicks in which floorboard creaks near the hallway. Jake had no clue. He looked around, trying to fill the silence. Said he liked the porch. Said it reminded him of Grandpa's cabin. That hit a nerve. Because Grandpa's cabin was the one place I ever felt like family. It was old and dusty, smelled like coffee and pine. But it was mine in spirit. Jake barely spent time there, yet when Grandpa died, guess who got the cabin? Not me. Jake stepped forward. Said he was not asking for much. Just a place to crash, just for a few nights until things settled down. He said he had nowhere else. I let the door open just enough for him to step through. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see something. How low had he really fallen? He walked in slow, looking around like a stranger in a museum. He pointed at the photo on the wall, me and the guys at the shop after finishing our first big contract. A 12-week job that nearly broke me, but also paid off my truck. He asked if it was recent. I nodded. He said nothing after that. Just stood there, awkward and quiet, like he was finally realizing that my life had gone on without him. I asked him what happened. He tried to brush it off. Said it was complicated. Said the market shifted. A business deal turned sour. Something about a partner screwing him over and some money tied up in legal limbo. I asked how much money. He hesitated before saying it. Almost $250,000. That stopped me cold. Jake, Mr. Golden Child, who always knew better, always had the best plan, was sitting in front of me flat broke. And my parents? The ones who never believed in me? They sent him here. To me. But the part that really got me? He never once asked how I had been. And in that moment, I realized something was off. He had not just come here to crash. He had come here for something else. Something I had not figured out yet. Jake sat on the edge of my couch like he was afraid it might break. His expensive shoes were scuffed, and his shirt was untucked in a way that looked accidental, not stylish. That was new. Jake never used to let anything slip out of place. He rubbed his hands together like he was cold, even though the room was warm. Then he finally looked at me and said something that knocked the air out of my chest. He asked if I could loan him the money. Not just a few hundred. Not a temporary patch. He wanted 75 grand. 75. He said it like he had rehearsed the number, like it would somehow sound less insane if he delivered it with just the right amount of humility. I blinked, trying to process what I had just heard. That was more than my truck. More than half of what I had saved to expand the shop. Money that took me years to earn. He told me I was doing well. That I always had been good with money. That he knew I could help. I asked him what exactly the money was for. That is when it all unraveled. Turns out, Jake was not just in trouble. He was deep. Owed back taxes, penalties, legal fees. And he was facing charges. Real ones. White-collar stuff, but serious enough that his lawyer wanted to settle fast to avoid jail time. Jake kept talking. Told me it had all spiraled so fast he barely saw it coming. One bad investment. A friend who walked out. A company that folded with his name still on the paperwork. He said he had no one left to ask. That mom and dad had already drained what little they had trying to help him hold on. That part stung more than I wanted to admit. They had given him everything, even when he failed. Me? They never invested a dime. Now, after all that, they expected me to fix it. I stood up and walked to the window, watching the wind sway the trees out back. My fingers curled into fists without me even realizing. Because I could feel it building. That old bitterness. That quiet anger. The one I had buried years ago. He was still talking, saying he would pay me back, swearing it would not be like before. Then he said it. Come on, man. We're brothers. And that did it. I turned around, slow and steady, and looked him dead in the eye. Not with hate. With clarity. Because I finally understood. This was never about brotherhood. This was about survival. His. At the cost of mine. After Jake went to bed, I gave him the guest room. I stayed up in the kitchen, sipping black coffee even though it was close to midnight. Sleep felt impossible. My thoughts were loud, restless. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw old scenes playing out like reruns. Jake's voice, calling me a screw-up when I dented Dad's truck in high school. The time I got into community college and Mom said, well, at least you'll have something to fall back on. The way Dad smiled wider at Jake's C+ report card than he ever did at my 4.0. And now, here we were. Jake sleeping under my roof, broke and begging, while I was the one with something to offer. The house was quiet, but the ghosts in the walls would not let me rest. I found myself walking to the garage. I flipped the light and stood there for a minute, breathing in the scent of wood shavings and metal. The workbench was covered in half-finished projects. My life's rhythm lived out in screws, bolts, and sawdust. I touched a frame I had been building for a local community center. It felt solid, real. Jake had never built a thing in his life. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my front door opening. I got up fast, thinking maybe Jake had left. But he had not. He was standing outside, phone pressed to his ear, pacing the gravel like he was trying to close some last-ditch deal. His voice was low, urgent. I stepped out quietly. Heard him say he might do it, if I play it right. He was talking about me. About me. I stepped back into the house before he saw me. My heart pounded, not with shock, but with confirmation. He had not come here out of trust or humility. He had come with a strategy. I should have felt furious, but I felt something else instead. Cold, calm, resolved. Jake had always played the game. He just never thought I would learn the rules. That was his mistake. Because now, for the first time in my life, I held the cards. And he had no idea what I was about to do next. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. It was my mother. I let it ring 3 times before picking up. Her voice was soft, the kind of soft she used when she wanted something. She said she was glad Jake made it. Said she hoped I could find it in my heart to help him. Then she added something that nearly made me laugh out loud. She said, "You've always been the steady one." The steady one. That was the word they used now, like it was some compliment. Like calling me steady erased the years they ignored me. Like that word alone made me the solution to a mess I had no part in. She kept talking, but I was not really listening. I was too busy staring at the photo on my fridge, a picture of me and my crew, all sweaty and smiling after finishing a brutal job out in the valley. We had built a custom deck for a veteran with mobility issues. No fancy press, no awards. Just a thank you note and a cold beer on a warm evening. That was the kind of legacy I had built. And now they wanted to drag me back into their story. A story where Jake was always the star, and I was just a supporting act. My mother asked if I could come over that Sunday. They were having a family dinner. Jake would be there. They wanted to talk. I asked if this dinner would be like the ones where Jake got second helpings before I even got a plate. Like the ones where I was told to be quiet so Jake could speak. She did not answer that. Just said she hoped I would come. Then she hung up. Later that night, I sat across from Jake again. He had cleaned up a bit, shaved, even put on one of my old jackets. Said he was feeling hopeful. That word again, hopeful. He talked like he was already halfway back on top. And I realized then he still thought I might say yes. He still believed the world would bend for him. Even now, I stood up, said I needed air, and walked out onto the porch. The air was crisp, the kind of cold that wakes you up from the inside. I pulled out my phone, typed a short message to my mother. I would not be coming to dinner, and I would not be loaning Jake anything. I had sinned, and just like that, a weight I had carried since childhood started to lift. But deep down, I knew they would not let it go that easy. And the fallout? It was coming. The message went out at 9:13 p.m. By 9:17, my father called. That alone told me how serious it was. He never called unless something broke or someone died. I let it ring until voicemail. Then again, and again. I picked up the 3rd time, mostly to get it over with. His voice came in sharp, clipped. No greetings. Just straight to the point. He said I was making a mistake. That family stands together. That I owed them at least that much. I asked him, when did I become part of this family again? He did not like that. Said I was being childish, ungrateful, selfish. That word, selfish, landed like a punch. Because I had been the exact opposite my whole life. I had taken the back seat, bit my tongue, paid my dues. And when I finally walked away to build something for myself, I never once asked them for anything. But now that Jake had run the car off the cliff, suddenly I was the selfish one for not jumping in after him. I hung up without saying goodbye. The next morning, Jake was gone. He left a note on the kitchen counter. It was 2 sentences long. Said he understood. Said he would figure it out. No thank you. No apology. Just that. He had taken the jacket too. The one I had lent him. That afternoon, I got a message from an unknown number. A lawyer. Apparently, Jake had listed me as a potential financial reference in one of his filings. Without asking, I stared at the screen so long it went dark twice. Then I picked up the phone, called the office, and had them remove my name from everything. That was the moment the final line was drawn. Jake had not just come looking for help. He had tried to use me, just like everyone else always had. But not anymore. Because for the first time, I was not trying to prove anything. I was protecting what I built, and they had no place in it. But just when I thought it was over, I got another call. Not from Jake. From someone I never expected. Someone who had not spoken to me in over a decade. And she had her own story to tell. Her name was Rachel. My cousin. My mother's sister's daughter. We were close once, back when we were kids playing in Grandma's backyard, chasing fireflies and pretending the world was fair. She moved away in middle school. After that, I never saw much of her. Now she was calling me out of the blue. Said she had heard from her mom that things were getting loud again. That was code in our family. Loud meant drama. Secrets boiling over. Usually centered around Jake. She told me something I was not ready for. Jake had burned other bridges. Not just money, not just favors. Legal ones. He had been listed as a silent partner in a company that was under investigation. Not white-collar slap-on-the-wrist stuff. Real damage. Real victims. Apparently, he had used someone else's identity in a deal that went south. Someone he trusted to keep quiet. Someone named Rachel. She said it happened 3 years ago. She found out only recently, after debt collectors started calling her employer. When she tracked the paper trail, it led to Jake. He denied it, of course. Said it was a mix-up. That it would go away. She never told anyone. Until now. Because when she heard he was at my place, asking for money, she realized something. Jake was spiraling. And he was willing to drag down anyone who ever gave him an inch. She said, I know you were always the one left out. The quiet one. But do not let him pull you under just because he finally needs you. Then she paused. And added, he never deserved what they gave him. I did not respond right away. I just stood there, phone pressed to my ear, heart thudding like I was back in high school, bracing for another insult at the dinner table. Rachel said she was sorry. Sorry for staying silent. Sorry for letting him hurt her and not warning me sooner. I thanked her, hung up, and sat down on my porch as the sun started to set. Because now I knew the truth. Jake was not just in a mess. He was the mess. And every time someone tried to clean it up, they ended up bleeding. But I was done bleeding. Now it was time to decide, do I cut ties for good? Or do I do something no one expected? That night, I sat at my desk and pulled out a sheet of paper. Not a laptop. Not my phone. Just a pen, paper, and a head full of memories I had never truly let go of. I wrote a letter. Not to Jake. To my parents. I did not plan on sending it. I just needed to put the words somewhere other than inside my chest. I told them everything. Told them what it was like to be the backup plan. To sit through dinner after dinner hearing Jake praised for things I had done better in silence. To be told not to make a scene while my brother caused scene after scene and was always forgiven. I told them about the scholarships I earned that they never acknowledged. About the night I fixed their leaking roof without even a thank you. About the pride I had swallowed every time they looked past me like I was just another wall in the house. I told them how it felt to get that call after all those years. Not with love. Not with regret. But with need. Because Jake had failed. And I had not. Then I told them the part one had never said out loud. That I was proud of who I became. That even if they never saw me, I saw myself. And that was enough now. I folded the letter, put it in a drawer, and locked it. I knew they would never hear those words from me. But I had heard them myself. And that made all the difference. The next morning, I got another knock on the door. Jake. Back again. This time with nothing but a backpack and a desperate look in his eyes. Said he had nowhere else. That everyone else had shut their doors. Then he looked at me and asked me, please, just one last chance. I looked at him for a long moment, and then I said something I never thought I would have the strength to say. I looked at Jake, standing there in the same jacket he had taken without asking, face drawn like a man finally realizing the credit had run out. His eyes were red, not from tears, but from panic. For a long second, I said nothing. Then I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and stood on the porch with him, just like we used to do when we were kids, only now the roles were different. You remember that camping trip when we were 13? I asked. He blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, I think so. You pushed me into the creek. Said it was funny. He gave a weak smile. We were just messing around. No, I said, cutting him off. You were always messing around, and I was always cleaning up after it. He looked down. I kept going. I spent most of my life thinking I had to earn your respect. Or mom's. Or dad's. Thought if I worked harder, stayed quieter, did better, one day, maybe they would see me. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. I do not need to be seen anymore, I said. I see myself. That is enough. His eyes started to water then, but I was not moved. Not anymore. I told him I hoped he found a way out of the mess he was in, but it would not be through me. I wished him well. Then I stepped back inside and closed the door. He stood there for a while. I could hear his footsteps shift on the gravel. Then silence. When I finally looked through the window, the driveway was empty. He was gone. And for the first time in years, so was the shadow.